Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks for coming. So we're doing kind of our first contributor bootcamp. We've done similar types of events before, but I think this is the first one where we're really gonna showcase the full life cycle, talk about contributing in different ways, and also talk about some of the technical side, but also even finding ways to contribute. And so that's exciting. So we have 4 people here, 4 panelists who will be talking about different components. And so I'll start with kind of an overview. So we're going to kind of start this meetup by first talking about the Apache Way. So just, there's many different flavors of open source, and the Apache Software Foundation has a set of philosophies and kind of a framework for thinking through what open source means. How do you kind of enable everyone to be a contributor? And so, yeah, Junlin will kind of talk about that part. Second, how to contribute. So actually kind of we'll do a quick demo on the life cycle of contributing, opening a PR. This PR won't be anything crazy, but it's just to showcase the process and get people familiar with it. Then we'll have Mariah talk about contributing to documentation, and we'll have Q&A after a quick Q&A after each part. So if people have questions, we don't need to wait till the end. Definitely feel free to use the questions tab at the bottom of Zoom, and then we'll tally them up and go through them after each section. So that's the plan for today, and we can get started. So I forgot to include Mariah's photo. Sorry about that, Mariah. But we'll start with some introductions. So I'll go first. My name is Srini Kadamati. I'm based in Boston. I'm a committer to the Superset project, and my focus is on developer advocacy. So I spend a lot of time on documentation, tutorials, blog posts, content in general. So just showcasing all the ways Superset can be used, and helping run events like this. Next, I'll pass to Junlin for a quick intro.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Junlin. I'm based in California Bay Area normally, but I'm traveling right now. I am a PMC member committer as well as a product person in the project. So if you have been involved or engaged with the project for a little while, you might have seen me on the GitHub repo, or we may have talked one way or the other before. So welcome you guys. Passing on to Villa.
All right, hi everyone. So my name is Ville Brofelt. I'm in Helsinki, Finland. I'm PMC and committer, and I'm a full stack developer. So I tend to kind of work in the visualization layer, but 50-50 kind of split between working on visualizations and then the API of the code base. And I'm focusing on kind of community engagement right now with Junlin and Srini. And I'll pass it over to Mariah.
Hey, I'm Mariah. I am currently the engineer in rotation on community growth. I mostly like to write front-end code, but I can dip my toes to the back end. And yeah, I have worked on Superset in the past, but I'm kind of getting refreshed in the past few weeks. And I've been focusing a lot on updating the documentation, which is what I'm going to be talking about later.
Awesome. Thanks for the quick intros. Now I'll pass it to Junlin to talk about the Apache Way and the steps to becoming a committer.
Okay, thank you, Srini. So before we dive into how to actually contribute to the project, I want to talk about a little bit what is the Apache Way and what's the philosophy of the Apache projects. So Apache Foundation is obviously the largest open source organization. It's a nonprofit. It strives to drive and foster community-led development process and culture. And we Superset as a top level Apache project, we want to follow the Apache Way to maintain and grow our community as well as the product itself. So that means when it comes to contribution and becoming a committer or even driving the future of the project, we evaluate your contribution or the contributor based on a certain area. So first is how much contribution you have actually done and in what area. So you can start from a first-time contributor with completely no knowledge of Superset and slowly gain your authority based on your contribution. And we promise that all your contribution will be recognized along the way. And second is a community of peer. So we want to see collaboration within our community, despite what organization you are working for, and what background you have. And we want to hear different voices in a respectful way when it comes to having a discussion or reaching alignment. And then the third is open communication. We encourage open communication. Ideally, all the discussion should happen in our GitHub repo. So it's always visible to all the community members, and also we can keep track on all the discussion. So and then it's the consensus decision-making process. So any product or technical changes that that we propose have to be discussed and reach the consensus before the actual implementation happen, which is submitting the code or the code being merged into the code base. And lastly is the responsive oversight. So instead of having a hierarchy like a normal organization, Apache Superset wants to create a flag or structure within the community, and that will rely on every one of us to all the individual to self-govern and be responsible for our acts. So one thing we want to highlight is you may see a lot of major organization behind a specific open source projects. So in our case, we have Preset, Airbnb, and a couple other organizations. So meaning that these organizations are actually sponsoring a group of engineers to work on the same project, but we really try to remain neutral as a project and not let any specific organization dictate the future of it. To make it happen, we really largely rely on building and fostering a decentralized community that's driven by individuals. So, and lastly, so even we are an open source project, and traditionally any open source projects are mainly engineering driven, we emphasize on the community more than the code itself. That means we welcome all the individual contributor with all levels, different backgrounds, different skill sets. So if you don't have a sponsor or you don't know how to write code, you can still become a committer. And I will give you a couple examples in the next 2 slides. Yeah, so Miro is an individual contributor that we have been working with for about a year. He contributed to some major database improvement in our Superset UI repo with the support from this team. And we recently kicked off his committership voting, and it successfully passed. So this individual is very special. He doesn't have any sponsor like majority of us. And he has been consistently working on this project during his spare time. This is someone that we highly recommend and want him to become a part of the drive of the project. And that means if you don't have any sponsor and you still want to become a committer of this project, let us know. We'll find a path for you. Let's do next. Okay, and this is another new committer. Her name is Jinghua Yao. She is employed by Preset, which is the same organization that we employ at, but she has a very different role. She's a QA person. She didn't contribute too much code in the last 6 months, but as a QA person, she developed a very complete test suite that can be shared within the community and improve or collaborate by different organizations. And so her contribution is mainly on improving the project or the product quality instead of writing code. So her committership has also passed. And that gives us an example that if you are a product person, a QA person, or designer researcher, you want to contribute to a project, there's multiple ways for you to achieve that goal. Next. And so there are multiple places that you can look for issues or ways to contribute. So first is, of course, in our GitHub repo, any issues that is being tagged a good first issue or need contribution, community contribution, is a ticket or is an issue that available for anyone to grab. Mostly, those issues are relatively easy and straightforward. And it's our commitment that if you do pick up those tasks, we will do our best to enable you and bring your solution to the finish line. Oh, yes, and project. So if you don't want to look at the individual issues, you can go to the project boards, which is right next to actions. So it's at the top tabs here, and click on it and look for the project that's called community issues. So yeah, grab any one of the issues you would like to work on, ping me or Villa, Srini, anyone in the team, or comment in the thread. We will see your comments and reach out to you directly. And then the other way to contribute is simply to answer questions in Slack channels. Now let's go to the next slide. So there are two main Slack channels for if you would like to contribute in the project. One is debug together, another one is a beginner questions. So because it's only 4 of us and we don't have the complete knowledge of the product or project, we wish we do. So it really relies on the community to help each other out instead of us providing all the answers to the questions. So if you have been using the product for a while, or if you have decent technical knowledge, please help out each other and your contribution will be recognized for sure. And yeah, that's my part. Any questions?
Yeah, if people have questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A tab. Give it a few seconds, otherwise we'll move on. There's one question earlier, Junlin, about sponsorships. If you open the Q&A tab, someone asked, can you explain sponsorships? It's my first time hearing of them. I clarified by saying organizations that are hiring people full-time to focus on contributing to Superset. That's kind of more or less what you meant, right?
Yep.
Good to know. Cool. Looks like there's no questions for now, but let's move on to the next section then. And this is Villa's part.
All right, thanks. And actually, I could add something to the sponsorship question. So there's actually a jobs board on the Superset Slack workspace, and there's actually people every once in a while that are posting where they need some specific customization for Superset or just help managing or deploying it internally. And so if you're interested in doing kind of project work, that's also a potential avenue for this.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's worth mentioning.
All right. So I'm going to do a quick kind of from zero to PR demo here. So I'm just kind of going to walk through a very simple kind of minimum base case of what it takes to actually make a code contribution. And I'll just start by sharing my screen. So just a second. So the first thing, so everyone's seeing my desktop, right? So the first thing you essentially need to do is just head to the GitHub page of Superset. So you just go to github.com/Apache/Superset. And here you can see essentially what the master branch looks like right now. So we can see that there's the most recent merge was done to master 37 minutes ago. And then we can see whatever issues, pull requests, discussions, and projects there are. And to be able to make a code contribution, you first have to start by forking the project. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm just going to click on fork, and then I'm going to select my own personal GitHub account. And that's essentially going to make kind of a carbon copy of the repo as it exists right now. And then that just takes a few seconds to finish. And then after that, I'm forwarded over to my fork where I can see that I'm here. And then it just says that this is forked from Apache Superset. So then to be able to pull in the code locally, I just go to code and then I copy this link from here. And then I open up a terminal and then I just write git clone and then I paste the URL. So what then happens is it just pulls in the full Git repo locally so that I can then work on this locally. And this takes a while to load. So what's essentially happening right now is it's cloning the full history of the project. So any commits that have gone in will be available locally, and you can kind of walk through the full Git log if you want to. So after that, I have the repo locally, and then I can do any Git commands that I want to. So then I think that the next step is to find something to actually work on. And of course, I think the most common way of getting started is of course kind of playing around with the product and kind of getting to know how it works. But then if you're kind of interested in finding out what kind of bugs there are or what kind of feature requests that there are, I think the easiest way of going about this is going to the repo and then clicking on issues and then walking through here, because this is where you'll usually find people reporting any regressions or bugs or feature requests that they have. And I'm just gonna kind of pretend that I'm just kind of walking around here and looking for a real issue, and this is one that I found today. So I just kind of looked around, just kind of looking for any kind of bug that I could solve fairly easily. So I can see that someone 21 days ago posted a bug about they're trying to update a dataset metric definition using the API, and it turns out that we're actually missing one of the key fields that this person is needing. So I kind of looked at this, and then I saw that this had been assigned to someone, but then no one had started working on this yet. So then I just reassigned this to myself, and then I just told the person that, hey, I was able to reproduce the problem, and now then I've assigned it to myself. And then I'm gonna do like they always do in these cooking TV shows where they pre-prepared something and then they just pull it up. So what I have here is I have the preset fork of Superset, and I've pre-prepared a pull request essentially. So if I look at what I have here, if I do a git status, I can see that I've modified 2 files. So I've modified the dataset schema file, and then I've modified the integration test for the dataset API. So just to kind of show what I've done here, I've just made a few small changes to the schema definitions. And these are the actual functional changes that I wanted to do. And then as a good citizen, I also add some integration tests. So what I did here is I usually, when I do a bug fix, I usually try to do test-driven development. So I usually write a new unit test or update an old existing unit test that fails on master branch. And then I start making the functional change. And then I kind of keep kind of fine-tuning my code until my new test or updated tests actually pass. So that's what I've done here. So I actually kind of went about this writing the test first, and then I did the functional changes later. So this is kind of a very boring integration test. And if I then want to run this test, I just write, there's this thing called talks. So with talks, you can you can run a full integration test suite, and you can actually just run an individual integration test as well if you want to. So I then kick off this to ensure that my tests are actually passing. And this actually, when you run this for the first time, it actually takes quite a long time because it has to build this full Docker container. But then the subsequent times you actually run this, it's going to be much faster. So what this is doing right now is it's essentially spinning up a full Superset instance, and then it kicks off the full front end, the full back end, and then it starts issuing all of these API commands. And this shouldn't take that much longer. So every time you see one of those green dots, it means that one test passed. So now I can see that 66 tests passed, 2 skipped, and then there was a bunch of small warnings. So then if I want to make a pull request of this, then I just write git checkout -b, which is for create a new branch. Then I do my name and then fix data set schemas. So that's just going to be the branch name. And then I add all the modified files. And then I just write a descriptive description for this PR. So it's going to be something like fix API incorrect API schema definitions.
Do you maybe want to quickly talk about what's going on here with pre-commit?
Okay, so pre-commit is you can install pre-commit, which when you do a git commit command, it runs a bunch of code linting tests and pylint. So it just essentially checks that whatever you're trying to commit is going to pass CI or certain tests on CI. So that's going to save you some time, because running the full test suite on CI or continuous integration on GitHub is going to take a while. So then if you have a typo somewhere, or a trailing space on one line of code, then that's better to fix now, so that you don't have to wait for 30 to 60 minutes for CI to complete. And I have some crap in my pre-commit configs right now, so it's giving off these weird errors every once in a while. So I can actually skip pre-commit if I want to, but then I just do -- no verify afterwards, and then it passes that. And then I'm just gonna push this branch up to GitHub. And then I go to my fork, and then that's gonna notice that, hey, I've just pushed a branch less than a minute ago. So I want to do a pull request from this. And in a similar fashion to how I had that pre-prepared dish, I'm gonna update the title here, and then I'm gonna update the description as well. So the summary then states that the dataset metric put schema is missing a few key fields, namely extra, verbose name, and UUID. And then in addition, the fields extra and UUID on the column schema have incorrect types, causing schema validation errors. This PR fixes the errors and adds relevant tests that would fail on master, and then closes and that issue that I was referring to just a second ago. And then before I create this pull request, I can then double check that the code changes that I want to submit are listed here. So these are the same ones that I was diffing on the terminal just a second ago. And then I'm happy with this. So then I just hit create pull request. And now the pull request is on GitHub. And then we can see that there's a bunch of integration tests or continuous integration tests that are being triggered. And then because I know that this is affecting the API of the backend, there's a few people that I know that are very active in this area. So GitHub actually already recommends a few persons. So I'm actually going to request Daniel and Beto to review this PR. So now they're going to get pinged, and then the next time they're around, they might check this out. And usually, actually, people don't always notice this because there's actually a lot of activity going on GitHub. So if you open up a PR and you're not getting any traction, feel free to pester us on Slack, and we'll kind of make sure that your PR gets reviewed. All right, I think that's it for the demo, and let me stop sharing my screen. There we go.
There's one
and then there was
question-
actually, there
there's a
was,
question on unit test. Yeah.
yeah, so there was actually a thing that I wanted to mention about monorepo. So
Okay.
can you,
You want me to share my
Srini?
screen?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure how many of you people have tried, or how many of you have made code contributions or have been thinking about doing it. But up until a few days ago, we were essentially running a multi-repo for visualization plugins. So if you wanted to make a change to one of the standard visualization plugins, you had to do a bunch of extra kind of boilerplate work to make it actually work. So you had to use npm link to link up to another repo. And then you had to, so if you were editing, for instance, 10 plugins, you had to run the npm link command 10 times. And then every once in a while you'd run out of memory, and it was really error prone and a really horrible developer experience. And then in addition, when you opened up the PR on Superset UI, which was the main repo for visualization plugins, in order to get those changes into the main repo, you had to do an npm deploy, and then you did a follow-up PR on the main repo where you were bumping the packages of Superset UI and the plugins. So, too long didn't listen. This was a very painful experience, and I think on Monday we merged monorepo, which was essentially moving every single piece of code from the Superset UI repo into the main repo. So now, if you want to make any changes to these plugins, you can skip the whole npm link altogether and just make small changes on the code in the main repo. And then when you do that, things just hot reload, and it's fairly instant. So if you've ever tried to make changes to visualization plugins, you failed, now is a very good time to make another attempt at doing this.
Yeah, no,
All right,
exciting.
I think that's it for me. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, there's one question Andrew is asking: is Superset using unit test as opposed to PyTest?
Yes and no. We're actually using both, and we're actually we're migrating over to PyTest because PyTest is kind of, I think, the best practice right now. But in the tests directory, you're going to find both. And that was actually a very good question, because we're looking for code contributions for migrating over old tests to the PyTest template. So if that's something that you have familiarity with, then it'd be very much appreciated if someone would help out porting over those old tests to PyTest. And then someone's asking, will 1.4 be based on monorepo? Unfortunately not, but 1.5 will. So 1.4 is, I think the second release candidate hasn't been put up for vote yet, but it's going to be released fairly soon. Yeah, so 1.5 is going to be based on monorepo. And actually, one of the benefits of monorepo is that it's going to be much easier to cherry pick pull requests into patch level releases. So in the future, when we find bugs on visualization plugin related code, previously we weren't able to pick those into the patch level releases, but going forward, that's going to be much easier. And then, is there currently updated docs for Superset UI changes? No, not yet, but we're actually working on those right now. But I think, just to be very kind of brief, it's working on Superset UI or plugin code right now is just as easy as working on the front end components of the Superset code base. So you don't need to do anything special. You just need to know that Superset UI components or the core components are under Superset frontend / packages, and then the plugins are in Superset frontend / plugins, and that's pretty much all you need to know. And then, any plans on participating as a mentor organization in this is Google Summer of Code, I guess. I don't know, Srini, are we?
We haven't historically, mostly because it just requires a lot of effort. And yeah, I mean, I think if this is interesting to people, I mean, let's you know, there's a ton of people that contribute to the project, so this would definitely be a cool community thing to do. But in terms of like since we all work at Preset, are we specifically doing anything? We don't have anything planned yet for that. But if people want or interested, like, we'd love to brainstorm and see how to make that happen. So yeah. Cool. I think that's it for Q&A for now. Please keep asking questions, but we'll move on to contributing to documentation, and I'll hand it over to Mariah to go through this part.
Hey everyone. Yeah, so contributing to documentation for Superset is quite easy actually. And it is a great way, especially if you're kind of hopping onto Superset and you're trying to figure things out and you're like, hey, this was actually really difficult to do and I wish I'd had like someone telling me how to do it. You can write that. And yeah, so this screenshot here, we have the docs folder within the Superset repo, and our documentation site runs through Gatsby, which is a simple framework for hosting static pages. It doesn't quite have everything we need, but I'll be talking about that in a little bit. So yeah, run these 3 simple commands in the docs folder and you will be able to locally build the documentation, and then you can hop on and edit it. So I can actually share my screen and show you what that looks like. Hold on. There we go. I'm just going to show my whole desktop. All right. So everybody should be able to see the doc website. So this is our page and we've got all our sections here. So like installation, we've got all this stuff on installation, connected to databases, creating charts and dashboards, you know, the stuff, the real meat of what you're doing in Superset is a little bit sparse. I personally have been adding some edits to Explore and creating charts and creating and editing dashboards. I've gone through, I just merged a PR, which is not going to show up here because I'm on another branch. I just merged a PR that was just some small changes, some tweaks, because this page had not been updated since I want to say like January, and Superset's gone through some changes since then. So this
Just
is
a
the
heads
current.
up, you're showing the website, not your local, the URL.
Yes, I'm going to show my local in a moment.
Okay, got it.
I was about, yeah. So I was about to say, actually, yeah. So this is our current live documentation website. But as you can see here, oh, there we go. I am currently running locally just the npm run start command that you saw earlier. And here is my localhost 8000. So I recently just wrote this little like native filters intro because we currently have filter box, which is getting deprecated in favor of native filters, which pretty much does the same thing. So I can kind of show you just a little demo of the live reload. Like, I don't know, let's remove this little bullet point. It seems a little unnecessary. So I just go on in here. Cool. Let's delete that. Right. And I actually don't know if it's going to hot reload or if I have to refresh. Oh no, it did hot reload. I totally just saw it. Excellent. Yeah, so very simple. And yeah, so this is all in MDX. You pretty much just type and then you can use Markdown. You can add images here in this image tag. So like I have all our images go in the images folder, which is in where? Here. So docs folder and then static images. Cool. And that is that. So here's the Superset docs README. And so these are the commands that you saw on the slide, just to let you know. And anytime you merge in like an update to these docs, CI will automatically publish it. And I can also just little promo the hold request that I made for the native filter section, which I will probably merge at some point since it's got an approval. And that's it. That's contributing to documentation.
Nice. And then I can quickly talk about or showcase the DocuSource slide.
Yes. Let me stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Oh my gosh. I've done this before. Oh, there you go.
So we have this. Perfect.
Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, we are currently running our docs through Gatsby, but Gatsby doesn't give us stuff like search, dark mode, which is cool. And so that's for that reason, we are currently in the process of migrating to DocuSource. I think Hugh is running that whole show. But yeah, we're gonna get search, we're gonna get dark mode, version specific docs. It's just gonna be a little bit more extensive. I think search is a really big one, personally. It's you saw like we definitely could use more documentation, but we still have plenty, and so it can be a little difficult to navigate sometimes and find what you're looking for. And the great thing is that even as this transition is in progress, you can still just hop into the markdown files and update the actual content if that's what you want to do. And that's it. I feel like there was one more thing, but I am blanking on it right now.
Yeah, someone actually, Chandan asked, are there plans to move away from Gatsby for documentation? So
yeah, there you go.
You read their mind and answered it. So that's great. Yeah, we're moving to DocuSource. It's going to be exciting. It's like React. I think it came out of Facebook. Big community around it. So yeah. And someone, anonymous attendee, asks, is there a set of design docs to go through for getting the overall architecture understanding of Superset? So kind of a visual picture, so to speak, of all the components. I haven't seen one, but maybe this is something we worth thinking about. I don't know if you've seen it, Villa, Mariah.
No, there isn't a comprehensive one, and there are actually kind of pieces of architecture here and there. So for some more complicated pieces of the architecture, there's kind of these kind of drilled down, zoomed in views of it, but there isn't kind of an all-encompassing architecture diagram anywhere, and that's actually something that we're planning on working on next, because that would help kind of getting a better understanding of what kind of components there are and getting started.
For sure. There's one more question about advice for someone who's never contributed to open source projects. Maybe Junlin, you want to take this one. Person without a sponsor, how could they get some guidance on getting started? Maybe a channel to post in for setting up a meeting with someone.
I was just typing the answer. It depends on your skill level or what your role is. If you are a developer, you already have a Superset working on your local environment, the first thing you can do probably is filing an issue. I am pretty sure that within half an hour using the product, you may find some sort of issues. And yeah, we can start from there. And a lot of contributors we have seen is once they find an issue, they provide a solution right away to close that ticket that they file. So that may be a good way. And then the other one is look for issues that have been tagged for a good first issue or need community help. So yeah, reach out to me. I can send you a list of those.
Awesome. Lennon asks, are you required to have Superset installed via Docker to make code documentation changes or other installation types can work? I think anyone can answer it, but I'll give it to Villa.
Can you repeat? I was
so basically, no worries. Lennon was asking if you're required to have Superset installed via Docker to make code and documentation changes or other installation methods can work.
Okay, so for code changes, and I think this isn't something you have to do, but this is just something that I've noticed. Pure front-end developers tend to run on Docker Compose, and then pure back-end developers tend to run the whole Flask thing locally. And then me being kind of in between full stack, I always run the Flask thing locally, and then I always have the whole npm dev server thing running. So I think you can kind of pick and choose, but I think the easiest way of getting started is definitely to run Docker Compose. But then just kind of adding one more thing, if you're very used to working with an IDE and you like breakpoints and stuff like that, then I definitely recommend Visual Studio Code or PyCharm or WebStorm.
Someone actually asked about PyCharm.
Yeah.
Does anyone use an IDE like PyCharm to debug Superset? Like, yeah, maybe. Do you have any quick tips or workflow suggestions? Yeah,
I do, and I think PyCharm has definitely made me way more productive than I would be with VI or any other kind of expert tools. And especially running, I think PyCharm in debugger mode is very, very helpful because you can just put your breakpoint in and do the whole debugging thing.
Any thoughts on discussions tab in GitHub? It's a good question because I think discussions was enabled on GitHub, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just what's our kind of, I guess, how do people think about discussions, or maybe what we should use it for and what we shouldn't?
Does Junlin have any thoughts here? I mean, I'd personally like to see discussion type of discussions in discussions rather than issues. I think that's been kind of a problem up until now. I think people post everything under issues, and I think we should try to reserve issues for kind of just bugs and
something that can be like immediately has an actionable item on it versus like kind of like a discussion where you don't necessarily have a solution, or maybe you're kind of just like juggling like multiple solutions and trying to determine the best one. That sounds like a discussion item.
Yeah, but the problem is when Q&A goes to discussion tab, it gains no traction almost, mainly because it has not been our focus in terms of helping people and where conversation happens. So that would be a place that really relies on the community to maintain together instead of a core, like a group of core people to like answering questions or solving issues. So
yeah, yeah, I think there's more we can do with discussions, and I think historically it's had a hard time getting traction, but maybe we can start to, if we think about like what it shines in, we could start to push people there potentially. But yeah, it's a great question. Siddharth has a very specific question. Villa, if you want to look in the chat. I'm able to add my plugins locally to the front end by running npm run dev server. They show up. I tried building Docker image. They gave me an error. Do I have to make changes to the Webpack file? What could be the reason? This may be better as a GitHub issue, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this might be something that's fixed by monorepo. Yeah, this is very specific. I think we should discuss this on Superset Slack.
Another question about plugins in chat.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So Hernan is asking, how are newer charts developed? And I think there's probably two distinct ways of doing it. So one way is if you're running Superset locally in your organization and you have very specific charting needs, then I would suggest building your own visualization plugin for that very specific reason or use case. But then if it's something that would benefit the whole community, like for instance, there's this question about having horizontal bar charts that comes up once a day almost. So if that's something you'd be interested in working on, then you should definitely open up a pull request on the main repo, because that's something everyone else wants as well. So I think it kind of comes down to that question. Is this kind of generally applicable to all Superset users, or is it something very niche and something specific to your own use case?
Is there an issue for horizontal bar charts?
I'm sure there is. There's probably multiple.
One thing I wanted to quickly mention is we did put out a survey So if we've been sending this out, we're hoping to get to about 100 respondents. So the goal of the survey is to help the core committers and PMC members better understand the kind of the versions that people of the versions that people are on, and just the developer experience, and how can we start to think about making it easier for people to contribute. So I just shared the link in I need to share it to everyone. I think I just shared it to the panelists. So here's a link to the survey. So please just take maybe 10 seconds. We'd appreciate it if you could fill it out, and we will share the results of the survey back to the community as well. So. Cool. If there are, we'll give it a few more seconds. If people have more questions, now's a good time to ask. You're also welcome to use the contributing channel in the Superset Slack if you have more questions as well. But it looks, I think we're good. Oh, we got one more chat. Fellow data engineer recommended to me. Nice. Cool. I think we're good on questions. Thanks everyone for coming. We will also be sharing the recording out. So if you signed up for this event, which you probably did since you're here, you'll get an email with the recording as well. And so you can watch it again or share it with others who could not make it. So thanks for your time. I hope this was helpful, and have a good rest of the day and good rest of the week. Thanks as well to the other panelists that joined us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.